Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Rosa and Rubini podcast, Making Sense of This World. My name is Manas Chavla, and as always, I'm really pleased to be joined by CEO and Head of Research, Brunello Rosa. Brunello, I recall Lenin once quipped that there are decades when weeks happen and weeks when decades happen. I don't know if he actually said that, but this week certainly seems to be one of those weeks. We have
Yes.
general views letter and podcast prepared about what's going on in the EU Parliament and the election of von der Leyen. Before we sort of jump into that, we have to address the events of Sunday night when President Biden announced on social media that he would no longer be seeking re-election after weeks of pressure from Democrat allies, over 30 senior Democrats stepping in, calling for him to step down after pressure built up after the televised debates where it was one of the worst performances we've seen. So could you unpack that a little bit for us? Who will the next nominee be? Is that almost certain for now? And what does the election look like really sort of 3-4 months ahead?
Yes, as I said, it was quite expected at some point that Biden would drop the race. He would remain president until January 2025, but his chances of beating Trump have become slimmer and slimmer, and the pressure for him to step down from that race have increased massively. Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, Obama himself apparently have all issued Biden to step aside and allow somebody else to run. Who's going to be that one person? Well, Biden in his letter said that he endorses Kamala Harris, and this morning Gavin Newsom, governor of California, potentially one of those who could run, endorsed her. So he decides not effectively to participate in the race. Clearly doesn't want to be burned in this very peculiar campaign. But others did the same thing, Cooper, Shapiro, and so on. So, effectively, for the moment, Kamala Harris seems to be the one nominee. This could reopen the entire electoral campaign that seemed almost going one direction, especially after the attempted assassination of Trump. But now, clearly, somebody else of a newer generation will come to the fore, whether it's Kamala Harris or somebody else, and probably new themes will be brought on the campaign, and hopefully the Democrats will be able to do what they were supposed to do from the very beginning, and this is what we want to do, which pointing out the dangers represented by Trump as becoming president. Something that couldn't happen so far because all the media were kind of obsessed with the latest gaffe. Biden, the latest thing he might have forgotten, and this and that. I mean, it's time to move on. And I think this is a good restart of the process.
Yeah. And then moving to the other side of the pond, the EU Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, was recently reappointed. This is very much what people had predicted, but in the middle, there seemed to be, some sense that it might not get pulled off. But the sort of status quo remains. How did this all happen? Who voted for her? How did she manage to bring together a coalition, even when there was somewhat of a rightward shift in the election results?
Yeah, so she had been trying to larger majority just to make sure that the friendly fire that always present, so the dissenters voting against the indication of their own party, wasn't enough to effectively stop her from having a second mandate. So she's been trying to pull a bit to the right, the ACR of Meloni, a bit to the left towards the Greens, and eventually those who voted in favor, 401 MEPs, 284 against, and so quite a large majority with a margin that is sufficient to come with some tranquility because 360 MEPs are needed for the majority, so more than enough for von der Leyen to sleep relatively tranquilly in coming months. Who voted for her? For sure, her own party, the Christian Democrats of the European People's Party, then the Socialists and Democrats, which is the second largest group in Parliament, the Liberals, of course, and then, and this is the real news, the Greens. The last time around, for the very last minute, this time around decided to join forces. But we believe that this could represent a mistake.
Yeah. In the run up to the vote, I mean, she had been trying to enlarge her majority beyond the, traditional tri-party bloc, the Socialists, Christian Democrats, and the Liberals. What exactly was the calculus with the Greens that she was trying to approach?
So the point is, she needed to go towards the parties that she thought she could work with. The Greens are obvious. They are in government in many countries, so nothing difficult there. Although, of course, there's the entire story of the green transition and that needs to be, played up accordingly. To the right, it was the ECR by Giorgia Meloni, who instead decided at the very last minute to vote against Ursula von der Leyen. Now, that would have always been a problematic vote from the entire ECR, because the ECR also comprises PiS, the Polish party that is considered to be toxic in Europe. Poland is still under Article 7 sanctions, let's call it that way, because of the violation of some of the rule of law provisions, in particular towards the judiciary. So having the ECR voting as a bloc for von der Leyen would be complicated, but the brothers of Italy of Meloni, which have 24 MEPs, could have potentially voted in favor. That didn't happen, and also this, in our opinion, was a mistake.
Yeah. But Georgia also sort of made a mistake, reasoning, as leader of the ECR, she said she was coherent with the declared intentions of never mixing her votes with, say, the Socialists, the Greens on the other side of the aisle. How does this impact her political legacy and the future implications for her stance towards Europe?
Yes, so the entire point of this piece is showing that two mistakes were made. The one that I mentioned before, and this one by Georgia. So what was the mistake by Ursula, by the von der Leyen? So von der Leyen effectively observed the rise of populist right-wing parties, which are now control 25% of parliament. And this is a movement that has been going on at least for the last 10 years, at least from 2014. So it's, it's a wave, it's not just a one-off. As the electorate moves to the right, especially against some of the policies of the EU, for example, the Green Deal that is considered to be too fast, too radical, she decided to move the political axis of the Commission to the left. This could increase the sense of frustration from those parties who have done well and still are kept out of power, but also from those people that may feel in Europe disenfranchised because they think, what's going on there? I mean, I'm sending a very clear signal. Guess what? You double down. In fact, Ursula von der Leyen said that she will approve within the first 100 days the Green Deal. So that was like, something that she may pay. Well, actually, Europe may pay 5 years from now, because once you start having a centrist / leftist coalition, and maybe doesn't work, then the only solution is in fact trying the complete opposite bloc, which is more or less the same problem that Macron faces in France. What's the mistake of Meloni? Well, Meloni had a resounding success in the European elections in Italy. She got almost 30% of the votes, the most popular political leader in Italy, with more votes, many more votes than the leader of the opposition, Elly Schlein. However, she has not capitalized on this success. First of all, she was not consulted on the top jobs. and that was very clear. It was a bit of a kind of a bitter awakening for Meloni on how EU politics really work. And then again, by voting against von der Leyen, the risk is that instead of influencing the policies of von der Leyen and making sure that there's a bit of a rebalancing towards the center, potentially slightly towards the right, so more or less in the direction provided by the electorate at the European level, she has left von der Leyen dealing only with the left-wing fringes. And by doing so, she has damaged Italy because Italy is not going to have the strong commissioner, the heavyweight commissioner that is aspiring to. For sure, is not going to have an executive vice president that is only granted to parties that support the commission. So this, I think, is a mistake because Italy is a founding member of what was the embryonic EU. Is a large country, cannot be in opposition forever, especially the country with the largest debt in Europe under excessive deficit procedure. So it needs to have friendly ears in Brussels rather than adversaries or even worse, enemies.
Yeah. Meloni's still sort of trying to argue that the weight of this commissioner depends on the relative size of the countries. Is there any truth to that? Could she still get away with having as much influence despite voting against von der Leyen?
No, I don't think so. I understand that's the argument she has to make. It says Italy is the second manufacturing country, the third largest economy, is a founding member of the EU. So, it cannot be given a small commission role. It doesn't need to be minuscule. It may not be as important as, for example, the one that currently has, with the Paolo Gentiloni being the EU Commissioner for the Economic and Monetary Affairs. So, and also, why would von der Leyen try to please Meloni when she has a supermajority that she can do whatever she wants? She will start pleasing the parties of her own coalition before start pleasing parties that were outside of her own coalition, even if they belong to large countries such as Italy, such as Poland, and others. It happens. So, European politics is complicated, and it's better if Meloni learn it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I think this goes back to all the sort of predictions and forecasts people were making about Meloni's European stance softening, coming entirely towards the middle. We now realize there are limits to that. That fundamentally a right-wing party is still a right-wing party at the end of the day. So there's much to learn in this and much to see for the weeks forward. But as always, Manuel, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you very much. Until next time.